Hey everybody, welcome back to Trekyards. I'm Captain Foley.
And I'm Commander Kongs. And Stuart,
Yes.
one thing we like on this channel is starships and space stations and shuttles, but I think not that far down that line is uniforms. I think that's fair to say.
Yes, it's very, very fair to say.
And the Star Trek koala in the sky has blessed us with many uniforms in the last couple of years, more than we would have thought. And this last episode, Stuart, they threw one at us out of the blue, like, you know, at the park with your kids, and suddenly a baseball hits you in the face, and like, what? All of a sudden, but it was a good baseball. The pain was a good pain.
And they've made themselves a lot of work, because you got to think, if you're sending a ship 930 years in the future, you're going to be revisiting some of those past years. So you need to design a couple uniforms, not just the 930 year in the future one, but a few. And we've seen a few with Senate Tal, or Tal,
Yep.
I guess,
I
former
actually
host.
forgot about
We've
that
seen
one as well. You're right. That was a slightly earlier version. Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen a few of those, so we've got this one as well, and of course, you know, the new ones that Vance and stuff is wearing. So it's great to follow that progression, but they really gave themselves a lot of work, a lot of designs to do.
Yeah, it also adds more confusion because we've asked from episode 4 when they met the Starfleet, why are they not in the new uniforms? It's insanity, and yet they, the common response is either because that's the branding of Discovery, or they haven't got the money, they don't want to spend it. But they've got like 4 people in uniform today in the new costume, plus people in makeup that is quite elaborate. And it's like they had enough money to make 5 new uniforms out of the blue and design them. Anyway, Stuart, that's not about today's. Well, it is, but it isn't. So today, Stuart, we have a new uniform. We have obviously graphics and thoughts and bobs. But let's go straight into the first picture, which is it. Boom. And as I tend to do, I do some visual enhancements, brightness, and etc. Try and get more of the details.
First reaction, I loved them. I thought they were great. They're kind of a callback to the motion picture era again. They remind me of Admiral Kirk's uniform with like the prominently white, but it's a light gray, obviously, but still, it gives that first impression of motion picture era. I do like the high collar, although I kind of like the TNG ones with a little bit of a split in the front, just to kind of make it look not quite as rigid and formal. That being said, I do like these ones.
Yeah, for me, the only thing that comes to my brain is they feel a bit too simple, which is odd because the stripe, well, I'm assuming the current ones feel like they've been designed more. This feels more like they sketched out lots of alternates to TNG and picked one. It hasn't got that same inspiration. Like it's missing something for me to make it feel inspired. Maybe even like if they had the red cut off below the com badge and so it went down the arms, that would pop more. Like I get it, it looks nice, right? It doesn't look bad, but it's missing something.
Extra stripes, like Picard. Add an extra stripe in there. Maybe, I don't know.
It's just something about it, and it kind of feels like it's obviously a take on the newer ones, but something about it just feels more like just a fan filmy fan design thing. They have unique rank pips, although we don't know his rank, so we can't attribute anything to this. But they are using the current day com badge, which sets the timeline of when this uniform could be around as being certain years, which creates the confusion of the whole scene.
But it makes sense this happens when the burn happened 120 years ago. So these are the 120 year ago uniforms because that's what she would have programmed if she was in Starfleet and made this program.
Except you forgot the context of the scene. This scene is representing Kaminar joining the Federation.
Walking Kaminar. Yeah, but the program's also malfunctioning.
Yeah, but all the visuals seem to be fine. You're right, technically it is malfunctioning, but I mean, to be fair, there was a lady with a TNG badge, even though she was not in TNG costume earlier, so there is some disparity. But that
was a very kit bashy uniform, hers. So
but that feels like a stretch, though, to say just because uniform. I can't imagine that was the intention. Otherwise, they just use a random badge, or maybe half do the badge, or
they could just be given a history lesson wearing the modern uniforms, 120 years ago, burn style. But anyway,
I'm happy to say it's Kaminar, and I'm civilizations can come back at any point and join the Federation, so that's fine. We know that certain combats last a while. You know, the TMP, or the Wrath of Khan uniform, lasted the longest out of all the uniforms, but the badges don't tend to last as long as you'd think, and we'll go into that in a minute. I guess they may have said we've got the apex of design at a certain point. You know, once you have a tricorder, a communicator, and a transporter all in the com badge, how many times do you have to reinvent the wheel? So potentially the com badge is, 100 years old and they haven't needed to change it. Well, at least with the 29th century com badge, is then. So it can't be, see, there you go. So it can't be pre-relativity because we know their com badge. So it has to be after 2900s.
One thing you mentioned during our live review was the rank pips and how they concerned you a little bit. And why is that? Because I didn't notice this, and something you mentioned.
I mean, the classic show don't tell. Next picture. That's a Battlestar Galactica reimagined 2004 series rank pip, which also goes on the collar. That's, I believe, Adama's, Apollo's. So I found one that was closer. Obviously, there's ones with less detail, but that's like a certain rank. And they're real similar.
They're real similar. They're not the same. If you zoom in, there is differences, but damn.
But you wonder why and that's exactly where they go in the uniform. And they're about the same size. So, and considering well, I mean, we know the future ones have a rank, as a bar. And I believe Relativity has rank as triangles. So I guess triangle turns to diamond, turns to bar. So, Stuart, we have graphics, of course, and look, brand big spectrum of uniforms all across the timeline. Of course, we have Picard and Nemesis. Then we have Picard's retirement uniform a few years after Nemesis. Same com badge, different look. Then we have a few years after that in Picard, new com badge, new look, but reminiscent. Cut to many hundred years later, 29th century Relativity, different uniform, different badge. And now this brand new one, which we know has to be post-Relativity, but pre-Discovery Season 3. How do that link connect? What do you think?
They actually do a pretty fantastic job of connecting when you look at them. Just everything, like the color adaptation from even from TNG up to the Nemesis ones, where the color gets put on the tunic underneath and then gets spread out to the shoulders again, and even the Relativity one's interesting because it's got one of the arms in color, which then feeds into the next one. Well, not necessarily the next one, but the later one, where the arms have the color on them. And I just noticed this now. It's kind of unrelated to the uniform thing, but the Picard com badge is a good, precursor to the Relativity com badge. Just turn it sideways, change colors. There you go.
It should still evolve into that, shouldn't it? Now, obviously, there's a bit of a... we've talked about how the Nemesis into the post-Nemesis is a bit of a weird one to go back a step. But we both postulated that it's because, post-war they want to go back to a more positive vibe, and so back to the more Voyager TNG style. Boom, easy. And obviously they evolved from there. Relativity is obviously 100 years later, whatever it wants to do. But you can see how the pips are now those triangles. The fact that, there's now a shoulder does link. It's the only one that does link to the new one, which has half a shoulder on each shoulder. So there is a slight... So without that bit in between, it's a bit more abstract. Doesn't quite, doesn't link per se, but... there is something there.
It can be speculated as well that the Relativity uniforms are unique to themselves and not necessarily representing Starfleet of the era, because it is like the specialist time cops. You'd think they'd have their own uniforms, so that might not be the standard for Starfleet.
But then, obviously, by that same logic, we'd probably quite postulate that these new uniforms we see today are like the diplomacy uniforms, like maybe the... formal uniforms of that era, because if they're at the official sign of a charter, easily, the way it's sort of clean white or grey, you could also argue that. So there's some caveats here, but let's start breaking down a little bit. The next picture has, and then a cleaner version of the current day one, because I think that's important to kind of show those details and how they do and don't connect.
And we didn't show Admiral Vance's uniform here because he's an admiral, and admirals generally have that out-of-the-box different kind of look to them.
Yeah, and he's also got a different uniform to the Admiral Senate Tal, who's not the CNC, so we can see a disparity with those uniforms. So yeah, CNC uniform is unique. Keep it out of the equation for a minute. But yeah, quite a few hundred years of difference, and now obviously you can compare the two newer ones. I don't know, do they link? Do they connect? Do they make sense?
Yeah, it's definitely heading in a new direction, but again... If the other one we just saw in this last episode was pre-burn,
well pre-burn, because you assume Kaminar would be hundreds of years ago.
Assuming it's the signing of the charter, or just modern day uniforms that she used for the program. Who knows, really? But yeah, either way, post-burn, I can see them going in a totally new direction with the uniforms, which they obviously have. The white or the colored stripe down instead of the more prominent shoulders or top. It is weird. They still have the high collar though, the exact same collar, just with a different rank. bars, but
Well, I think it feels like the same textured material, and the way that the collar is the same, the shoulders feel very similar, and the way there's these very deep lines in the uniform, which is kind of unusual, is reflected in both uniforms, slightly different, although the middle one looks the same. So clearly, it feels like the same costumer on the same set tweaked a basic pattern and made some new ones, which is what they did, as opposed to Relativity or the other ones where they're fully original, etc., etc. Although it is, less annoying than when they made the TOS Discovery uniforms, where it was just the Discovery uniforms recolored, and you can see the same cutouts of the same parts of the uniform because they just took the same pattern and just made it TOS. So it's like, well, okay, fine. Evolution is a hard thing to talk about, especially since how does TNG evolve into Voyager? Like, does it evolve or just change a bit? So this is just, it changes a bit. But I do think I prefer the new ones, as weird as that is.
I mean, they're a great look. We haven't seen enough of them, honestly, in my opinion. But yeah, the new ones are cool. I do like the evolution of gray. Like, we go from black to gray, to dark gray, then to light gray, then to a different kind of gray. So we kind of dropped the black out of Starfleet. Now it's just gray. Does that mean Starfleet itself is more gray?
And the one last thing to note, it is subtle. The comm badge is actually different, even though it is the same design. This version of the comm badge, if you go back to picture 1, is a delta, which is hollow. The actual new ones are actually just flat metal, sort of more subtle. So it is actually an older version. It is more distinctly a delta with, same design, different vibe.
Yeah. It's more of a matte finish on the newer ones, and a
sometimes
delta.
It varies. Sometimes they're absurdly shiny, sometimes they're not. But remember, they've also got rank pips on the comm badge and also that under triangle. So this is very much just a delta on a oval. Whereas the new ones are, because there's no rank pips, so it also,
which makes me wonder, these might not have the tricorder and stuff built in, because that little thing on the bottom of the comm badge on the new ones is where the beam emits from for the tricorder and stuff,
So, well done then for being subtle, because it does push us back way further. It does give our current comm badges a bit of extra, snazziness. It certainly pulls away from Relativity a little bit, but maybe after Relativity they said, hey, let's go back to a more classic vibe. Certainly more of a Discovery-esque vibe with the split and with the thick lines. But yeah, no, there you go. See, that's kind of a nice equivalency of subtle but the same. You can easily miss, but actually everything in this uniform is different, even though it feels a lot similar to the current one, which is sort of how you want evolution to be a bit.
I would just like clarification as to when this was, whether it was the time the ship crashed and she just used the modern uniform she knew, or if this was in fact the signing of the Treaty of Kaminar. That would be interesting to find out, because I want to know where it fits in the timeline. And there's no real answer there. Just, it's pre what we have now.
Yeah, but my like I said, my assumption is that it's post Relativity, because that makes sense. Because clearly they're a Starfleet uniform. This is not like it's a civilian. It's a Starfleet uniform. There's no reason to assume these aren't the standard Relativity ones, because, time cops, but also just...
Yeah, but I like the idea you suggested too. They could be dress uniforms. They actually have a dress uniform feel to them.
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit. So there you go, guys. We love our uniforms, and boy, did we overanalyze these. But you know what? We found out all of the secrets. And we can't wait for them to actually tell us where the hell they're from, because we want to know.
When the hell they're from, not where.
That is what I meant.
I know. That's why I corrected you. Anyway, guys, put down in the comment section what you thought about these uniforms. Where do you think they fit in the timeline? Is it the signing of Kaminar, which could be hundreds and hundreds of years earlier? Is it just as the burn happened 120 years ago kind of thing? Let us know what you think in the comment section. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Maybe join the channel. There's a join button there as well, which helps us out. And also make sure you hit the notification bell icon so you get notified every time we upload. All those are very important things to help out the channel, but there are other ways to help out the channel besides just being you and joining us and watching every video we do,
which is amazing, and we rely on those people. But the other people that do help us go Packard style, a little bit of donation every once in a while, or every month if you want to be that guy. Patreon, join the channel, PayPal, Super Chat during the lives, all great ways. Very, very important. Essential. And especially as we go into 2021 without the new shows, we need those bits of monthly support, because you see how much content we do. We produce.
We do.
Help us produce more, and of course we're going to do some more great interviews and such this year. So help us out if you can, please do. And if you can't, just thanks for watching.
That's right. So until next time, guys, I am Captain
Foley. And I am Connor Combs.
See ya.
Bye, guys.